The history of cell theory. The beginning of our understanding about cells starts in the 1600s in England. Robert Hooke was an English scientist who studied in many different branches of science. He enjoyed using telescopes to look at distant objects in the heavens, and he also was one of the first to begin using microscopes to look more closely at objects on Earth. The microscopes of his day had very low magnification. He used the microscopes pictured here to observe a variety of things which he then drew. He compiled his drawings into a book he published called Micrographia, which inspired others to use microscopes for scientific exploration. It was while working on this project in 1665 that Hooke made an interesting discovery. While observing a thin slice of cork with his microscope, he noticed what looked like little walls in the cork. Hooke coined the term cell for describing living organisms, the term being suggested by the resemblance of this plant tissue to the cells in which monks live. Although the cork sample was not a living plant tissue, the cell structure was evident, and our knowledge of cells began. Because Hooke documented his observations and published them, other scientists began their own research using microscopes. Across the English Channel in Holland, a young man named Anton van Leeuwenhoek was an apprentice in a dry goods store where magnifying glasses were used to count the threads in cloth. Van Leeuwenhoek was inspired by the magnifiers used in the shop to inspect the quality of cloth. He taught himself new methods for grinding and polishing tiny lenses, which gave magnifications up to 270 times, the finest known at that time. Van Leeuwenhoek then ground his own lenses to create the first microscope, allowing him to see small organisms. He made 25 microscopes with different magnifications. Around 1675, he made a startling discovery while looking at some pond water with his microscope. He saw some minuscule objects that were moving. He named these small creatures animalcules. Later they were named protozoa and bacteria. With further observations, van Leeuwenhoek made several more discoveries on a microscopic level, eventually publishing a letter to the Royal Society in which he included detailed drawings of what he saw. The date of his discovery varied from source to source. Among these was the first protozoa and bacteria discovered. During a long life, he used his lenses to make pioneer studies in an extraordinary variety of things, both living and non-living, and reported his findings in over 100 letters to the Royal Society of England and the French Academy. Anton van Leeuwenhoek is credited with being the first person to discover and describe living cells. Several scientists in the next 100 years used improved microscopes which enhanced the study of cells. In 1839, a German botanist, a scientist who studies plants, named Matthias Jacob Schleiden, deduced that cells Robert Hooke and Leeuwenhoek described were the basic unit of all plants. Schleiden began cell theory with his statement that all plants and parts of plants are composed of cells. The story is told that Theodore SCHWANN, a fellow German scientist, was having dinner with Schleiden one evening. Schleiden shared his feelings with SCHWANN. SCHWANN then did some research of his own on animal tissue and reached the conclusion that not only plant, but animal tissue as well is composed of cells. Schleiden and SCHWANN had taken the information they learned from previous scientists, did more investigating on their own, then added to the existing knowledge about cells. SCHWANN is credited with organizing their findings into two main ideas. First, all living organisms are composed of one or more cells. Second, the cell is the most basic unit of life. Rudolf Virchow, a fellow German scientist, gave the world the third part to the cell theory in 1855. After his research about cells, he concluded that all cells come from other living cells. The work of several scientists over a period of 190 years came together in what is called cell theory. It's interesting to note that cells were not officially recognized as the basic unit of virtually all life forms until 1839. Therefore, the Webster 1828 dictionary definition is not accurate for our current studies. For the next several lessons, you'll be learning about cells and what amazing organisms they are. Scientists have given us quite a variety of additional knowledge since 1855. Prepare to be amazed.